She stood across the room, her voice trembling, but her eyes steady when she said it. You should have chosen me, not her. I froze, every sound around me disappearing in that moment. My answer slipped out almost on its own, heavy with years I couldn't take back. But weren't you married? Those words tasted like regret on my tongue, and the silence that followed cut deeper than any argument could. That was the night I realized how fragile time is. How quickly the choices we make in our youth come back to stand in front of us. Flesh and blood demanding answers. My name is David Lawson. I'm 55 years old, divorced for nearly a decade. My kids are grown. One lives in Chicago, the other in Dallas. I still hear from them, but most days it's just me and the echo of an empty house. I've built a quiet life, or at least what looks quiet from the outside. Early mornings, black coffee, long walks, occasional poker nights with friends, safe, predictable. A life where nothing unexpected happens anymore. Or at least that's what I thought. Then came the reunion. An old friend decided to host a gathering just like in the old days. Same group of us from high school. Gray hair now where there used to be wild haircuts, slower laughter, but still the same jokes. I went there expecting nothing more than a few drinks, some cheap nostalgia, and maybe the reminder that I wasn't 20 anymore. I didn't expect her. When I walked in, I saw familiar faces, some older, some barely changed, but my eyes landed on her immediately. Elizabeth Harper. She hadn't been in my thoughts for years, but in an instant, every buried memory surfaced. The long afternoons when we were young, the secret glances, the unspoken bond we had before I walked away. She was standing near the window, light catching her hair just the way it used to when we were kids. Except now, she carried herself with the kind of strength you only gain after surviving storms. Back then I loved her, God I did. But she was swept up by a man who promised her the world. I told myself I couldn't compete, that I had no right to interfere. So I chose someone else. And for years I tried to believe it was the right decision. I married young, worked hard, raised a family. Meanwhile, I watched from a distance as she lived her own life. And now, here she was standing in front of me, looking at me as if no time had passed at all. The moment she spoke those words, "You should have chosen me," it was like a knife twisting in my chest. I looked at her face, older but still beautiful, and I saw not just the woman she was now, but the girl I had once been afraid to fight for. I didn't know what to say. The room felt too small, the air too heavy. My hands wanted to reach out, but my feet stayed rooted. She didn't smile. She didn't blink. She just waited as if daring me to finally be the man I hadn't been all those years ago. Around us, people laughed, clinked glasses, told stories. But for us, it was like the world had gone quiet. Just her eyes locked on mine, asking the question she had probably carried for decades. Why not me? I told myself I came to that reunion to see old friends, to drink, to laugh. But in that instant, I knew I had really come to face her, to face the choice that shaped both our lives. And I wondered, standing there with a drink in my hand and her words echoing in my head, was it too late to change the story, or had time already made its decision for us? I didn't sleep much after that night. Her words stayed with me, circling my mind like restless birds. You should have chosen me. I kept hearing them in her voice, low and steady, as if she'd been holding them in for years, and finally let them escape. A week later, I found myself walking into the small cafe downtown where people from the reunion said she sometimes went. I told myself it was just coincidence that I wanted coffee and nothing more. But my chest tightened the moment I saw her sitting by the window, her hands wrapped around a cup, staring out at the rain. I almost turned around. I almost left, but she saw me and she smiled faintly, cautiously, as if she wasn't sure whether to let me in or shut me out. David Lawson, she said, and that one word felt like home. I sat down across from her, and for a few seconds we just studied each other, both of us pretending we weren't shaken. She spoke first. I shouldn't have said what I said that night, but I shook my head. You meant it. You wouldn't have said it otherwise. Silence lingered outside. Rain tapped against the glass. She looked older, yes, but not in a way that dimmed her. There was a strength in her face, the kind forged by years of surviving things most people never talk about. She took a breath. My marriage wasn't what it looked like. People thought I had it all. Big house, vacations, 2 kids, a husband who seemed successful. But inside I was alone for years. He cheated. He drank. And when he wasn't gone, he made sure I felt small. I stayed for the children. I smiled for everyone else. And I told myself it was what life demanded of me. Her voice cracked, but only slightly. She was holding herself together with quiet dignity. And for a moment I hated myself because I remembered the boy I had been, the boy who loved her, but stepped aside. Elizabeth Harper, I started, but she held up a hand. I'm not telling you this for pity, she said. I'm telling you because when I saw you at that reunion, something in me broke. All these years I wondered if you had fought for me, would it have been different? Would I have been spared all of that? Her eyes met mine, and I swear I felt 20 again, raw and unprepared. My throat tightened. I had no answer that would make her pain vanish. I thought you were happy, I said finally, my voice low. I thought he was what you wanted, and I didn't want to ruin your life. Her laugh was sharp, bitter. You wouldn't have ruined it, David Lawson. You might have saved it. Those words cut deeper than the first ones. They left me staring at her like a man who just seen the wreckage of something he'd once built and abandoned. A waitress came, asked if I wanted coffee. I nodded, though I barely tasted it when it arrived. All I could taste was regret. We sat there a long time. Sometimes she talked, sometimes we just sat in silence, the rain filling in the gaps. She told me about the nights she cried herself to sleep, about the way her husband's betrayal hollowed her out. She told me about the relief she felt the day he was gone and the guilt of feeling relieved at all. I listened. I absorbed every word like a man being handed pages from a book he should have read long ago. And the whole time one thought haunted me. I should have been there. As we finally stood to leave, she looked at me with something fragile in her eyes. Not anger, not accusation, something softer, but heavier. I don't know why I'm telling you all this, she whispered. Maybe because I want to know if you regret it as much as I do. Her hand brushed mine as she reached for her coat. It was the smallest touch, but it burned like fire. When she walked out into the rain, I stayed behind, staring after her, knowing this wasn't just a conversation. This was the beginning of something neither of us could run from anymore. I started seeing Elizabeth Harper more often after that day in the cafe. It wasn't planned. At least that's what I told myself. But somehow we kept crossing paths at the grocery store, on the street, at the park where she walked her dog. And every time it felt less like coincidence and more like gravity. One evening we walked together along the river trail. The sky was painted with shades of orange and violet, the kind of sunset that makes silence comfortable. She talked about her children, how proud she was of them, how hard it had been to raise them with so much weight on her shoulders. I listened, though half the time I was distracted by the way the fading light caught in her hair. You know what bothers me the most? She said, stopping for a moment that I wasted so many years pretending everything was fine. Smiling when I wanted to scream, staying when I should have left. I wanted to tell her I understood that I had wasted years, 2 years, hiding behind a marriage that fell apart. Years convincing myself I'd made the right choice back then when I hadn't. But the words stuck. Instead, I just said, "You're here now." She looked at me, her expression softening, and for a moment, it felt like forgiveness. But life doesn't let you have moments like that without consequences. The first time I met her son, Jacob Harper, I knew I was in trouble. He showed up one Saturday morning when I was helping Elizabeth Harper carry groceries into her house. He's in his late 20s, tall, serious, with his father's sharp jawline and suspicious eyes. He didn't shake my hand when she introduced us. He just stared at me cold and silent until I felt the weight of his judgment press into my chest. Later, as I was leaving, he followed me out to the driveway. "Stay away from her," he said flatly. "She's been through enough." I tried to reason with him. "Jacob Harper, I care about your mother. I only want." He cut me off. "You had your chance years ago, didn't you? You chose someone else. Now you come back when she's vulnerable." No, not happening. There was nothing I could say to change his mind. He walked back inside without waiting for an answer, leaving me standing there with my fists clenched at my sides. That night I couldn't sleep. His words hit harder than I wanted to admit. He was right. I had walked away once, and now after everything, I was daring to believe I could step back into her life. But the next day, Elizabeth Harper called. "Walk with me?" she asked. Her voice was gentle, almost hopeful. We met in the park again. This time it was raining lightly, drops glistening on her hair. We shared an umbrella, though we were so close it hardly mattered. She didn't mention Jacob Harper, and I didn't either. Instead, we talked about little things, books, music, the past. At one point, she slipped her hand into mine. Just like that, no hesitation. My heart raced. Not like a boy's anymore, but like a man who'd been starved of something real for too long. "You feel it too, don't you?" she asked quietly. I nodded. I couldn't speak. We walked like that until the rain stopped. Our hands still joined. The silence between us, no longer heavy, but alive. When I dropped her off at her house, Jacob Harper's car was in the driveway. She pulled her hand from mine before we reached the steps. I could see the shadow of him watching from the window. She turned to me, her eyes full of something between fear and longing. "Don't give up on this," she whispered. Then she disappeared inside. I drove away with my heart pounding, knowing this was no longer just about two people finding each other again. It was about fighting for something we should have never lost in the first place. Jacob Harper didn't call first. He showed up at my door on a gray afternoon, the sky swollen with rain, the way a person swells with words he can't keep inside. I opened the door to find him on the porch, jaw tight, hands jammed into his coat pockets like he was holding himself together. "We need to talk," he said. I let him in. The house felt smaller with him inside it, the way a memory makes a room crowded. He didn't sit. He looked around like he was measuring what kind of man I was by the furniture I owned and the pictures on my walls. There were photos of my kids, a framed river map, a lamp that didn't match anything. He stared at all of it and then at me. "My mother says you make her feel calm," he said. "That scares me. I'm not here to hurt her. You already did." He stepped closer. "You left her once by not choosing her. You think the second time will be kinder if you change your mind again." "I won't," I said, and the words surprised me with their certainty. "I won't run." He studied my face for a long beat like he was waiting for a blink that would give me away. "You're a chapter she closed," he said finally. "I don't want you rewriting it." "I'm not rewriting," I answered. "I'm trying to finish what should have been written." Anger flickered in his eyes, but beneath it, I saw something else. Worry that had been wearing his shoulders for years. "She lost enough," he whispered. "I had to grow up faster than I wanted to. I cleaned up messes I didn't make. So, forgive me if I don't trust the man who didn't fight for her when it would have mattered the most." There wasn't a clever reply to that. I took the hit. He turned to go, then paused at the door. "If you break her," he said, "I won't be polite about it." Rain started as soon as he left, a steady tapping that filled the rooms. I stood in the doorway until my shirt was damp and the cold made sense again. I thought of calling Elizabeth Harper, then decided against it. I didn't want to put her between the two of us. Not yet. She called me. "Jacob Harper came to see you, didn't he?" Her voice carried the tired warmth. I'd come to recognize the sound of someone who keeps choosing gentleness, even when life doesn't return the favor. "He did," I said. "He loves you." Comes out like a threat, but that's the shape his love learned to take. There was a silence that felt like two people nodding. "Walk with me?" she asked. We met at the park near dusk. Wet leaves stuck to the path and the river moved with the quiet force of something that doesn't need to prove itself. She wore a slate coat and no umbrella, hair damp at the ends. I slipped off my jacket and settled it over her shoulders without a word. She didn't protest. "Jacob Harper means well," she said as we walked. "He learned to guard me because no one else did." "I know, and he's wrong about you." "I intend to make him wrong," I said. We stopped under a willow whose branches shook rain like a dog shakes water. She faced me serious, as if she had a decision in her pocket and wasn't sure which way to unfold it. "I don't want to hurt him," she said. But I'm tired of living like every step has to be approved by the past. You don't owe yesterday any more rent, I said. A small smile tugged at her mouth. You always did know how to say things when I needed to hear them. Then the smile faded. Do you regret it? Truly? Yes, I said. Every version of my life where I don't fight for you is a story I don't want to read again. The confession lived between us, warm in the cold air. She took my hand, fingers cool and sure. We stood like that while the wind stitched the river to the trees and the rain softened into a mist. No rush, no fireworks, just the quiet relief of two people finally stepping into the same sentence. We walked back to her car slowly. Jacob Harper's text lit her screen once, then twice. She didn't answer. She unlocked the door, then closed it again and leaned against the frame. Come sit for a minute, she said. We didn't drive anywhere. We stayed in the stillness of the parked car while the heater hummed and the windows fogged at the edges. She rested her head on my shoulder. I felt the weight of it, the kind of weight a man hopes to earn. My hand found hers on the console and stayed there. No rush to turn closeness into something louder. The touch was enough. It said what words would have over-explained. I forgot what this felt like, she murmured. Being safe where I am. Stay as long as you want, I said. She turned her face toward me, close enough that I could see the pale constellation of freckles time had left on her cheekbone. Her eyes searched mine, not for permission, but for proof. I didn't move first. Neither did she. We let the almost of it hold us. The edge where hope is sharpest. A knock on the passenger window startled us both. Jacob Harper, rain on his hair, jaw set. Elizabeth Harper sat up, but she didn't drop my hand. He saw that. He swallowed whatever he'd come to say and backed away a step, torn between anger and the realization that the world had kept moving without his consent. Elizabeth Harper opened the door. We're talking, sweetheart, she said gently. Not fighting. Talking. His gaze shifted to me. Are you? Yes, she answered, for both of us. And I'm asking you to trust me. He looked at his mother a long time, then at our hands still joined. A muscle jumped in his cheek. He nodded once, reluctant, not surrender, but a ceasefire, and walked to his car. Elizabeth Harper closed the door. The rain softened again as if the sky had exhaled. He'll come around, I said, though I didn't know it for sure. I hope so. She squeezed my hand. But even if he doesn't right away, I can't keep living afraid of choosing what I want. What do you want? She met my eyes, steady to stop being a chapter you skim to be the story you finish. We sat there until the dashboard clock whispered us toward night. When she finally drove off, I stood in the empty lot and watched her tail lights fade, feeling something inside me settle into place, like a key finally turning in a lock. I knew then that the next step wouldn't be gentle. It would be honest, and honesty was the only thing strong enough to carry what came next. I woke the next morning with a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years, maybe decades. The truth had been circling me long enough. It was time to stop ducking from it. Regret is heavy, but silence is heavier, and I couldn't carry both anymore. So I went to her. Elizabeth Harper opened the door before I could even knock twice. She was in a simple gray sweater, her hair pulled back, face bare, except for the kind of honesty that comes when a person is tired of masks. She looked at me like she already knew I wasn't there for coffee or small talk. David Lawson. She whispered as if my name itself was a question. I stepped inside, my chest tightening with every second of quiet between us. I'd planned words on the drive over, but they dissolved the moment I saw her. All that came out was the truth. I should have fought for you back then. I should have said something, anything, instead of letting you go. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just protecting myself from fear. And I've lived every day since with the echo of what I didn't do. Her eyes filled, though she didn't look away. She folded her arms across her chest, not defensive, just steadying herself. Why tell me now? Because I can't undo the past. But I don't want to waste what's left of the future. Her breath caught. For a moment, I thought she might tell me I was too late, that we were too old, too worn, too broken. Instead, she moved closer. You mean this truly? Yes. My voice didn't waver. I don't have a map for it, I don't have guarantees, but I'm done pretending that what I feel isn't real. I love you, Elizabeth Harper. I never stopped. And I don't care if it's messy. I'll fight for it now. Silence stretched. Then footsteps behind us. Jacob Harper. He stood in the doorway to the living room, arms crossed, expression guarded. For a second, none of us spoke. It was him who broke the stillness. Do you really love her? He asked me, his tone sharper than the words themselves. I do. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I can't give back the years she lost, but I can give her everything I have left. Jacob Harper looked at his mother. She nodded once, her hand brushing my arm as if to say she was choosing this, too. He exhaled, a sound caught between resignation and reluctant acceptance. Then don't screw it up, he said finally, and he left the room. The door clicked shut, leaving Elizabeth Harper and me in the kind of quiet that feels like an answered prayer. She turned to me, eyes shimmering. He'll need time, but that was more than I expected. I pulled her gently into my arms. She didn't resist. Her head rested against my chest, and for the first time since I was a boy, I felt whole. We spent the afternoon walking the old streets of our town, hand in hand. People passed by, some glancing, some smiling, but none of it mattered. For the first time, I didn't care what anyone else thought. At one point, she stopped near the riverbank, the same place we'd walked as kids. The water moved slow and steady like time itself. She looked at me, her face lit by the pale gold of evening. You realize, she said softly, if you'd chosen me then, our whole lives would be different. Different kids, different homes, different scars. I know. And yet somehow we're here. Somehow, I said, squeezing her hand. Maybe this was always where we were supposed to end up. Just took us the long way around. Her smile broke then. Not the cautious one I'd seen for weeks, but the kind that came from the girl she used to be. The one I'd fallen in love with before fear made me let her go. As the sun dipped and the first stars began to flicker, I realized something. I couldn't rewrite the past, but I could write the rest of the story with her. That night, when I dropped her off, she lingered at the door, reluctant to let go of my hand. David Lawson, she whispered. Don't disappear this time. I won't, I promised, and I meant it with everything I had left. She closed the door gently, but I knew this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning, late, imperfect, but real. Driving home, I felt the years fall away. Not because they vanished, but because they no longer held me hostage. Regret had given way to something stronger. Hope. And for the first time in a long time, hope felt